This is the University of Illinois Extension webinar on Carbohydrate Counting Basics. My name is Kristin Bogdonas. I'm the Nutrition and Wellness Educator serving Henry, Mercer, Rock Island, and Stark counties. And with us today is Lindsey Kabat. She will be presenting this webinar. Lindsey is a registered dietetic technician and is completing her dietetic internship with us this summer as part of the graduate program at the University of Northern Colorado. She is also working towards her Master's of Science degree in nutrition through Texas Women's University. After completion of her internship, she hopes to work as a registered dietitian and gain certification to be a diabetes educator. Lindsey is also the director of the Sandberg Community Garden, which is an approved University of Illinois Master Gardener site. Next slide, please. For those of you that may not know, the University of Illinois Extension is the flagship outreach effort for the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Extension offers research-based educational programs to residents of Illinois in all 102 counties and far beyond. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Lindsey to get started.
Hi everybody, it's great to have you here with me today. I just wanted to do a little disclaimer that today's webinar does not replace directions provided by your doctor or give individual diets. Your dietitian or doctor may have given you a carbohydrate range and that's individual to you. Consult your doctor or dietitian for your individual needs. And diabetes affects everyone differently, and meal plans, again, like I said, are very individualized. So just a little overview of what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to go over what carbohydrates are and why we would want to count them, identify foods that contain carbohydrates, practice counting carbohydrates, and then to help balance carbohydrate intake, we will review helpful meal planning tips. So we have quite a few participants, and I want to give a quick overview of the different types of diabetes in case we have any participants that don't have this background information. Diabetes is a disease that occurs when your blood glucose or blood sugar gets too high. Insulin, a hormone made by the pancreas, helps take glucose from the food that we eat and put it into the cells to be used for energy. With diabetes, this process doesn't work. There are two main types. Type 1 is considered an autoimmune disease where the body attacks the cells of the pancreas that produce insulin. Without insulin, the body cannot put the glucose into the cells and the blood glucose levels rise. The onset is relatively quick and usually begins in childhood. Type 2 is a little different. Individuals will start with prediabetes, and prediabetes usually doesn't have any symptoms. In prediabetes, the body's cells become resistant to insulin and the glucose doesn't enter the cell to be used for energy. The pancreas will then secrete more insulin to try to get those cells to listen so they can put the glucose into the cells. Well, after a while, the pancreas can tucker out, and that's when full-blown type 2 diabetes develops. Counting carbohydrates can help with both types of diabetes. So like we just discussed, people with diabetes have trouble putting glucose into the cells for energy, either from lack of insulin or resistance from the cells. Counting carbs is a great meal planning tool that we can use to prevent the highs and lows in our blood glucose and keep levels stable. So why do we really want to count these carbs? You want to prevent those highs or the hyperglycemia because that can lead to kidney disease, heart disease, hypertension, poor wound healing, stroke, and premature death. And diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death in the United States among men and women. So hyperglycemia is considered when your blood glucose gets over 200. And some of the symptoms of those include thirst, hunger, frequent urination, and headache. But we also want to prevent hypoglycemia. Some of you or your loved ones may be on insulin or a medication that can cause hypoglycemia. And hypoglycemia is when your blood sugar gets below 70. Glucose is the main fuel for our brain. And if your blood glucose gets too low, you might start to feel shaky, lightheaded or dizzy, irritable, and experience sweating or chills. So what are carbohydrates? Carbs are a macronutrient. So we have macronutrients, which give us energy, and micronutrients, like our vitamins and minerals. So carbs are a macronutrient that our cells break down for energy. We also get energy from protein, fat, and alcohol. These carbohydrates are then broken down into glucose. And note the picture. I'm a bit of a biochemistry nerd, so I just had to share a little picture of that glucose molecule. So there are several different ways that you can count carbs. There's the exchange list, the nutrition facts labels, or the plate method. Today, we're going to focus on the exchange list and the nutrition facts labels, as these two methods give you better control over your diabetes. Reading the nutrition facts labels is easy once you know what you're looking for on the label. And the exchange list can take some practice at first, but it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So here is a sample nutrition facts label. These may look a little different than the previous one because the FDA just mandated that all food labels be updated to match this format by 2020. The nutrition facts labels will give you the exact content, carb content of a food, and you should use this whenever possible. So I first want you guys to locate the line that shows the total carbohydrate. On this label, one serving provides 37 grams of carbs. They then break that down into fiber and added sugars. Fiber is actually a carb, and I'm going to talk about fiber a little bit more later on, why we want to choose foods with more fiber. And we also want food that doesn't have too many added sugars. I then want you to locate the serving size up there towards the top. This is where a lot of people can get into trouble, because if you don't pay attention to the serving size, you might end up eating too much. So for this particular food, and I think it's soup, the serving size is 2/3 of a cup. So let's say you're really hungry and you want a big bowl of soup and you pour 2 servings. Well, then you're going to get 74 grams of carbs from this food. So this is something you really need to pay attention to. The exchange system was created by the American Diabetes Association and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You can use this carb counting method if you're eating something without a nutrition facts label. Like I mentioned before, it can take some practice, but I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible. I don't like complicated, and I'm sure you guys don't like it either. The exchange list groups similar foods together. The foods within each list can be exchanged for one another during meal planning, and you end up with about the same amount of carb, protein, fat, and calories per each group. There are 3 main groups: the carbohydrate, protein, and fat group. Today, we are going to focus on the carbohydrate group, since that food group is going to affect your blood glucose the most. The carbohydrate group is broken down even further into the non-starchy vegetables, starch, the others, which is mostly your desserts, fruit, and milk substitutes. All right, moving on to the carbohydrate exchange list. These subgroups have varying amounts of carbohydrates. You'll notice the non-starchy vegetables typically have 5 carbs, the starch, other, and fruit have 15 carbs, and the milk has about 12 to 15. I want you to commit those numbers to memory, the 5, 15, and 12. Also note on the My Plate diagram to the side, your carbs are going to come from all of those food groups with the exception of the purple protein group. So what doesn't count as a carb? So these foods are the proteins and fats, and they do not contain carbs and will not contribute to your blood glucose levels. So these include your meat, fish, poultry, cheese, and eggs, and your fats like your olive and avocado, butter, nuts and seeds, and your oil-based dressings. You know what else we're not going to count as a carb? Your lettuce. Lettuce has such few carbs, we consider them a free food. So you can eat as much lettuce as your heart desires. So your iceberg, radicchio, endive, romaine, spinach, all of those are free. All right, moving on to the foods that do have carbs. We're going to start with non-starchy vegetables. Your non-starchy vegetables are going to give you 5 grams of carbs per serving. And this group includes your cruciferous fruits like your broccoli and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, your allium fruits such as your garlic and leeks and onions, and your fruits. And I have that in quotations because anything that has seeds inside of it is technically considered a fruit of the plant, but that's going to include your tomatoes, your peppers, cucumbers, eggplants, and your squashes. So a serving is typically half a cup cooked, 1 cup raw, or half a cup of vegetable juice. This group is going to have the lowest calories of all the food groups and typically packed with vitamins and minerals. These non-starchy vegetables should be the stars of your meals. So if you're looking for recipes, I encourage you to check out the Nutrition and Wellness webpage. The extension has a lot of really great recipes on there. All right, and now on to the starch group. Each serving size of starch is approximately 15 grams of carb. The serving sizes are the cooked product, not the dry product. This group is going to include your breads, your biscuits, bagels, tortillas, cereal, rice, pasta, snacks, and starchy vegetables. So as you can see listed, a serving size is roughly 3/4 a cup of unsweetened, ready-to-eat cereal, which, think about your Cheerios, and a half a cup of sweetened cereal, so think Lucky Charms, or a half a cup of hot cereal, so like your oatmeal. And then 1/3 a cup of pasta or noodles and 1/3 a cup of rice. Now I do want to comment that pasta is now 1/3 a cup instead of half a cup. I know that's kind of a bummer that the serving size got smaller, but a lot of resources on the web do not reflect this updated size. So I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware of the change. So speaking of pasta, let's say we're going to eat out at the Olive Garden and you order the plate of spaghetti with meat sauce. That plate of spaghetti is going to give you 88 grams of carbs. And then let's say you had just one breadstick, just one. That breadstick is going to give you 25 grams of carbs. And now you've just eaten a total of 113 grams of carbs. But Lindsey, you say, what can we eat if we shouldn't eat that many carbs? What options are out there? Well, at the Olive Garden, they do have better options for those who need to control their carbs. An example meal might look like their chicken margarita. So if you were to go to Olive Garden and got one of those breadsticks, then you're getting 25 grams of carbs. And the chicken margarita is about 9 grams of carbs. And if you get the salad without croutons, then you're getting 42 grams of carbs. That's pretty good. And they also have some really good soup choices. The chicken gnocchi has 22 grams per bowl. The pasta fagioli has 16 grams per bowl, and the minestrone, which is my family's favorite, has 17 grams. So those are some options to think about. Maybe go without the pasta and try more of a meat-based dish. And just throwing this idea out there, you can always ask your server to just not bring the breadsticks so you're not tempted to eat them. Okay, we're still on the starch. A serving of starch, like I said, has 15 grams of carb. And here are some sample sizes of some snacks. And that might look like 6 round or square butter crackers, 3 cups of popcorn, 1 ounce of chips, which is about a handful, or about 3/4 of an ounce of pretzels, which again is about a handful. And now moving on to the starchy vegetables, these also have 15 grams of carbs per serving. And some example serving sizes might be a 1/2 cup of beans, a 1/2 cup of corn, or a 4-inch corn on the cob, which is about 1/2 an ear, a 1/2 cup of sweet potato, or a 1/2 cup of mashed potatoes. I also wanted to note on the peas that if you eat 1/2 cup of peas, that is considered a starchy vegetable exchange. But if you eat it with the hulls or the shells, that is considered a non-starchy vegetable. Okay, and now moving on to the fruits. From this food group, they're also going to have 15 grams of carbs per serving. And typically, serving sizes are about a 1/2 cup of fruit, a small apple, pear, or tangerine, a 1/4 cup of dried fruits, but there are some oddballs like 17 grapes and 1 cup of melon. And moving on to other carbohydrates, this is where you're going to find most of your desserts. And each serving size is roughly 15 grams of carbs and 1 fat exchange. The serving sizes vary in this group, so it really is best to just try to find the nutrition facts label. And any more, you can find that information online or on a phone app. The typical serving sizes are small because they're high in fat and refined sugars. So here are some example, samples of the desserts. Like I said, the serving sizes are small. So for example, just take a look at the first one, unfrosted cake. A true serving size of cake is not like what they're serving you at a restaurant. It's a 2-inch square. So if you hold up your fingers and kind of eyeball 2 inches, it's really going to be about 3 bites. And have you guys ever heard of the 3-bite rule for food cravings? So your first bite is to try it. And your second bite is to savor it. And the third bite is to be satisfied. And also, if you are going to have dessert, have it after your meal. If I decide to eat ice cream as a snack in between meals, once I get started, I will almost always eat too much. But if I eat it after my meal, I'm less likely to overeat because I'm going to feel full sooner. So some example serving sizes also include 1 small cupcake. That's actually going to be 2 carbs, 2 carb exchanges. 2 little cookies. So think of like maybe the size of like an Oreo. that little sandwich, that's going to be 1 exchange. And then a half a cup of fruit cobbler is going to be 2 exchanges. And a plain, no icing, cake donut is going to be about 1.5 exchanges. And then a muffin, man, those really pack a bunch of carbs. That's going to be 4 carbs in 1 4-ounce muffin. And then ice cream, a half a cup is 1 carb. And then ice cream with no sugar added is a half a cup. And sherbet or sorbet is half a cup, and that is going to be 2 carbs, 2 exchanges. And yogurt, frozen yogurt is half a cup, and then a frozen yogurt fat-free is 1/3 a cup. But there are some better options out there if you're craving something sweet. Look for the sugar-free options. Now, this does not mean that they are carb-free, but most of the time they will be lower in carbohydrates than the original. Now, there's a lot of controversy that surrounds artificial sweeteners and their safety, but researchers have tested them and they have been found to be safe. I personally like the stevia and Splenda because they don't have that funky aftertaste. And then condiments. Your condiments can also have carbs in them. So 'tis the season for grilling, and if you're putting ketchup or barbecue on your burgers and brats, then about 3 tablespoons is going to be 1 starch exchange. And remember, 1 starch is 15 grams of carbs. And then honey, regular maple syrup, and jellies will give you 15 grams or 1 starch exchange and 1 tablespoon. And again, they make sugar-free options that will have less carbs, so you might want to choose those instead. And then here are some low-carb options. So mustard, mayonnaise, low-sodium soy sauce, hot sauce, and ranch. Those are all pretty low-carb. And finally, the last of the carbohydrate group is milk. Each serving size of milk is approximately 12 to 15 grams of carbs. Now for milk is going to be 12 grams. But when you add flavorings like chocolate or strawberry, you're adding even more carbs. Milk substitutes are a little different. The unsweetened or artificially sweetened are usually about 15 grams per serving, but I have seen some on the market that are less than that. And an 8-ounce cup of yogurt is also going to be 1 milk exchange and have 12 grams of carbs. Okay. Wow, so I just threw a whole bunch of information and numbers at you, and your head is probably spinning, but that's okay because we're going to review and we're going to practice. And I just wanted to go over this slide one more time. If there's one thing I want you to take home, it's the slide right here, which is 5, 15, and 12. And these are the typical amounts of carbs for each of these groups. I know there are some oddball serving sizes in each food group, but in general, this is the amount of carb in a typical serving size will give you. So the more you practice using this, the easier it will be. And if you're not good at eyeballing serving sizes, you might need to get out your measuring cup and measure out food until you get the hang of things. I keep my measuring cups on top of my microwave. My husband's type 2, so it just helps remind him to measure out his food. So going back over it, the non-starchy vegetables are 5. The starch, fruit, and your desserts are typically 15 grams of carbs. And your milk exchange is going to be 12 to 15. Okay, so let's practice this a little. For this exercise, I'm just asking if it has carbs or if it doesn't have carbs. I don't need you to tell me how many carbs. I'll go over that as we go along. So I just want you to think for corn, for example, and I want you to think about whether or not it has corn or whether it has carbs or not. And if you said yes, you would be correct. About half a cup of corn or a 4-inch corn on the cob has about 15 grams of carb. And what do you think about the honey roasted peanuts? If you thought yes, then you would be correct. Plain peanuts do not have any carbs. They're considered a high-fat protein. But once you add that honey and that sugar on them, then that adds about 1 starch exchange, which is about 15 grams of carbs. And how about baked beans? What do you think about baked beans? If you thought yes, then you would be correct. A half a cup of regular plain beans is going to be 1 starch exchange and give you 15 grams of carbs. But once you add in all that sugar, the serving size goes down to about 1/3 of a cup. So how about almonds? What do you think? If you guessed no, you would be correct. Almonds, like peanuts, are a high-fat protein. How about chicken fried steak? If you thought yes, then you would be correct. Chicken fried steak, the breading, is considered a carb. And so about 2 to 3 tablespoons of flour is going to be 1 starch exchange and give you 15 grams of carbs. How about broccoli? What do you think about broccoli? Broccoli is in the non-starchy vegetables, and it will give you about 5 grams of carbs for half a cup cooked or 1 cup raw. What about romaine lettuce? What do you think about romaine lettuce? If you said no, you would be correct. Romaine lettuce has such few carbs that we're not going to consider it as a carb food. And how about ketchup? If you thought yes, then you would be correct. 3 tablespoons of ketchup is going to give you 15 grams of carbs. And how about hot dogs? If you said no, you would be correct. A hot dog is, again, a high-fat protein. And last is the butter. What about butter? If you said no, then you would be correct. Butter is a fat and it does not have any carbs. However, a better option would maybe be to choose oil if you're using it for cooking, but that's a whole different tangent that we're not going to get on today. Okay, so now I want to give you a few meal planning tips. Try not to skip meals. Skipping meals can lead to hypoglycemia or low blood sugar, and this is especially important in those who are using insulin or other medications that can cause low blood sugar. Low blood sugar is very dangerous, and we definitely want to avoid that. Also, space out your carbs. Your doctor or dietitian may have given you a range of carbohydrates that you should be eating daily, and this amount should be spread out evenly throughout the day. So don't save up your carbs and then splurge for one meal. Also, balance your meals. Make sure you're getting some protein, carbs, and fat at each meal and snack. And doing this will give you sustained energy. And I'm going to explain why on this next slide. Okay, so I'm going to use this slide to demonstrate the importance of balancing your meals. You'll notice on the right side, we have a glass of water and some white bread. We're going to put that slice of bread in the water and let it sit there for a few minutes. And when we come back, that bread is going to be pretty soggy and it's probably going to be pretty gross, and it's going to be easy to stir up in that glass. Okay? So now let's look over at the left side of bread. Let's add some protein and fat. Let's add some peanut butter and then add it to the cup of water. When we come back a few minutes later, that slice of bread with the peanut butter is going to be a little less soggy and a lot harder to stir up. When we balance our meals with protein, carbs, and fat, the same thing happens in our digestive tract. It takes a little longer for a meal to break apart, which means our bodies are not going to absorb the glucose as fast, and we can avoid our glucose spiking and then dipping too low. And here's that slide on fiber I told you we get to. Fiber, like having balanced meals, can also slow digestion and help you stay full longer. Fiber is going to come from your fruits and veggies and whole grains. So when you're in the grocery store, try the whole grain options. I know my parents told me that they tried the whole grain bread long ago and they didn't like it and they've never tried it again. Well, they've come a long way since they kind of first really started offering those whole grain bread options, and they're not as heavy as some of their earlier versions, so I really encourage you to make the switch if you're ready. Okay, so now I'm going to test you. I know no one told you you were going to have a math test today, but we're going to do some math. So let's say this is what I'm having for breakfast. I'm having 1 cup of oatmeal made with water, a half a cup of fruit, a 1/4 cup of mixed nuts. Now, do you remember how much is in 1 serving of hot cereal? A serving of hot cereal is going to be a half a cup, and that's going to give you about 15 grams of carbs. But since I'm having 1 cup, that's 2 servings, so that's going to be 30 altogether. Now, how many carbs are going to be in a half a cup of fruit? If you thought 15, then you would be correct. A half a cup of fruit is about 15 grams of carb. Now, how many carbs are in a 1/4 cup of mixed nuts? If you thought 0, then you would be correct. And if you add all of this up, my breakfast is going to give me about 45 grams of carbs. Okay, so here's my lunch. I'm having a 3-ounce baked salmon, a half a cup of non-starchy vegetables cooked in oil, a half a cup of mixed fruits, a 1/3 of a cup of pasta with garlic and oil, and an 8-ounce cup of milk. So how many carbs are there in the baked salmon? If you thought 3 ounces, or I'm sorry, if you thought 0 carbs, then you would be correct. And how much is in the half a cup of non-starchy vegetables cooked in oil? If you thought 5 grams of carbs, then you would be correct. A non-starchy vegetable serving is 5 grams of carbs. How about for a half a cup of mixed fruit? If you thought 15 grams of carbs, then you would be correct again. A half a cup of mixed fruit is going to give me 15 grams. That's 1 fruit exchange. And how about 1/3 a cup of cooked pasta? And if you thought 1/3 of a cup was 15 grams, then you would be correct. All right, how about my 8-ounce glass of milk? How many carbs is in that? If you thought 12 grams of carb, then you would be correct. And if you add all of this up, 5 plus 15 plus 15 plus 12, the total for this meal is 47 grams of carb. So that's a pretty good example of a meal. If you were still hungry afterwards, you could probably have maybe another serving of the non-starchy vegetables or even maybe another serving of the fish. Okay, so let's maybe come up with a dinner. Let's say for dinner, since it's grilling season, let's use some good summer items. Let's say for dinner, we're gonna have a grilled chicken. A serving size of grilled chicken, since it's a protein in the protein group, it's going to give us 0 grams of carbs. And let's use this this plate as our guide. So for our protein, we're doing the grilled chicken, but let's do our non-starchy vegetable. Let's do corn, since it's the season for sweet corn. Let's do a non-starchy vegetable. So let's do a cucumber salad. Let's do 1 cup of cucumber salad. Now, typically a 1 cup of a non-starchy vegetable that's not cooked is going to be 5 grams of carbs. All right, now let's do starch. And let's say we're gonna have a 4-inch corn on the cob. A 4-inch corn on the cob is going to be a starchy vegetable, and that is going to give us 15 grams of carbs. And let's say for dairy, let's go ahead and say I'm going to have a glass of milk with dinner. So an 8-ounce glass of milk is going to be, do you remember what it is? It's going to be about 12 grams of carbs. And let's say for dessert, I'm going to have some fruit. And since it's season for watermelon, let's do 1 cup of watermelon. And a fruit exchange is going to be 15 grams of carbs. So if we add this all up, it's going to be 5 plus 15, that's 20, plus 12 is 32, plus 15 is 47. So we kept it under the 70 grams. So this is a pretty good dinner. So if you still wanted to keep it under 70, you could probably have maybe another cup of watermelon or more of the cucumber salad. So this would be a pretty good evening dinner. All right. And there are some really good smartphone apps out there. There's the MyFitnessPal. My husband really likes this one. This is the one he uses. There's the Carb Manager or the MyNet Diary. These ones you can input what you've had for a meal and they'll tell you how much carbs you've had, how many calories, how much fat, how much protein, how much fiber, vitamins and minerals. So these are really good for helping you keep track of what you've eaten throughout the day. And you can also kind of use it to track your blood sugar. So say you've eaten a meal and then you track your blood sugar, you can kind of see how that affects you as an individual. And then there are some really good websites. There's diabetes.org, which is the American Diabetes Association. There's eatright.org, the American of Nutrition and Dietetics website, and the Mayo Clinic. These are all really good websites to look through for information about diabetes, or they have really good recipes as well. And
All right.
I will
Thank you, Lindsey. That was a great presentation. I really enjoyed all of your examples and meal planning tips. And I think this is a great tool for people wanting to manage their carb intake. So thank you again for being with us. And if you enjoyed today's presentation, keep an eye out on our YouTube channel for more health and wellness webinars that will be coming out this fall and winter. In the meantime, if you'd like to stay in touch, you can join our Extending Wellness texting program by going to go.illinois.edu/wellness tips, where you'll get 1 to 2 messages per week on a variety of different healthy living topics. So again, Lindsey, thank you so much for your time and your energy, and for everyone that tuned in today. Thank you. Bye-bye.